We will now see what it means to use a dot command inside the SQLite3 shell. So these are helper commands that are offered by the shell, and the SQLite engine is in no way responsible for interpreting the commands. These are basically convenience features to change the output format of queries or to execute certain functions. So for starters, to list the dot commands, you can issue .help. So I have the SQLite3 shell open, and typing .help and hitting the return key will list the dot commands that are supported by the SQLite3 shell. Couple of rules here. It must begin with a dot at the left margin with no preceding white space. So that's the reason why if we type space and then .help like this, it's going to lead to something that we don't want. It's going to consider it as a command. The next thing is the command must be entirely contained on a single input line. So unlike your SQL commands which can span across multiple lines, this is not possible here. The third thing is a dot command cannot occur in the middle of an ordinary SQL statement. So keep this in mind. So in case you decide to export some data from your SQLite database, don't try to do it at the middle of the statement. It will be an error. And finally, dot commands do not recognize comments. So these are the 4 rules as far as the dot commands are concerned. Let's now see a couple of those in action. So let's start with the first one, dot tables. We'll list the tables that are there in your database. Here we have just a dummy table, and that's about it. The next one is dot schema. It's going to show the SQLite or the SQL statement that was used to create this particular table. So that's the second one. The third one is dot databases. This dot command lists the databases that are being accessed by this current SQLite3 shell. For now, we'll just see one output which corresponds to the file that I used to open this connection. It's called as the main database. Remember, one thing to know is you can attach multiple databases to an opened SQLite3 shell. So that's how you get to share results. Don't worry about it. We will see all these details on how to open and share databases in later sections. So here is an example of something that you might not see on your SQLite3 shell. Let's just insert into dummy. I'll use, say, text 1. Sorry. And then let's insert another one. Now when I run a select statement here, you'll notice that the field is also listed. By default, the headers is off, as you'll notice on your particular shell. So that's why when you run the select statement, you'll see an output like this. By turning this headers to on, we'll see this as the output. The column name will always be displayed. In case you want this to be the default behavior, then you just look at my SQLite3 default settings file. It's in your home folder in this location, .SQLite-rc. Here I have headers on listed. That's why when my connection opens, this resource configuration file will be red and the headers will always show the column names. The next file that's important for your usage is the .SQLite_history file inside your home directory. This will show the history of commands that you have used in your SQLite3 shell. So when you type your up arrow key, this is the file from where the statements are read. So let me first open this database school.db and show you what's in here. There's a student table, and if we run a select, you'll see that there are 2 rows here, one with student with age 1, another one with student with age 30. Sorry, the first one has age 10, and here are the fields. Feel free to browse through this database. But what we want to do now is to display this information in an HTML page like this. So how do we get that done? Let's go through the steps. So for this, if you want to try this, for starters, I'll give you a minute. Here are a couple of hints for you. You need the following dot commands, something called mode, dot mode. Then you can use either dot output or dot once. All right, hopefully you had the time to try it out. Let's now look at the solution. Since this is the first one, I'll handhold you and show you how to do it. There are 2 more quizzes that follow in this, for which you'll have to do this by yourselves. So let's set the mode to HTML. So now you see that the records are displayed like this when we issue the select statement. Now once the mode is set to HTML, data is going to be displayed in a near tabular form. For those of you who are familiar with HTML, you understand this is how the table is created. For the rest of you, HTML is a markup language. So you'll see tags here. So this stands for table row, and here we have table header showing all the 3 column names, ID, name and age. And then you have the actual data appear in 2 rows. TD stands for table data, TH stands for table header, TR stands for table row. So now that we have set the mode to HTML, the next thing that we're going to do is set once to, say, a file called dummy.html. Dot once will split the output of the next SQL statement into this file instead of showing things in the shell. So now that the output is done, let's now open the file dummy.html. So now that we have this file open, let's pretty it up. HTML body and then table. Slash body and then slash HTML, and that's it. You're done. At this point, if you open this using your browser, you'll see the output show up like this. So that brings us to the end of this first exercise. Now let's look at the quizzes.